Hello and welcome to Reiki Women Podcasts. It's me, Bronwen Logan from Reiki with Bronwen, and the beautiful Carrie Varela is here with me today, as always, from the Reiki Healing Society. And Michaela is off, doing life. So we're here today and we're going to talk about something that I think is going to be great fun. So it's how do you know if you are spiritually aligned? Now, we're always thinking about, working on ourselves and helping others and doing all these things. But are we on the right path? Are we doing the right thing? Is it the right thing for us? How do you know? Does someone tell you? Do you feel it? I'm going to hand this over to Carrie. What do you reckon, Carrie?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And so there's probably many ways to find more spiritual alignment and feel more connected to your right path, right? And Reiki, I think, has a lot of skills within it. But I was thinking of one of my favorite ways to get more spiritual alignment. Find it is to light a little sage. So I'm going to light a little sage right now and let it go. And then I have this beautiful feather and I just let the smoke fill my space and I'll put the smoke over me. And, it's a little ritual. I might even do my back and my feet, or if I'm in my Reiki space, I just burn my carpet a little bit there. But it's one of those things that, first of all, I don't know, I have a connection to the smell of sage and the scent in general is a really powerful way to get more spiritually aligned, because it impacts different parts of our brain associated with memory. And so that's why I do love to use aromatherapy as well with my Reiki clients, because there's something really potent about energy work and then working with our senses, activating all of our senses in beautiful ways, right? Like evoking the sacred beauty, using something like sage or essential oils. But what I think is really happening when we do that, Bronwen, is that we're clearing the fear. And we're just allowing ourselves to kind of move past that fear. And a lot of times why it's difficult, challenging to connect authentically to our intuition or to spiritual alignment is because we're really locked down in fear.
Yeah.
And we really have to get out of that. So maybe the motivation there is like, oh, I don't have enough money in my bank account, or I'm going through this drama with my significant other. And so we're already going into the inquiry about spiritual alignment from this place of fear or lack. And so I think that's the number one reason why we don't necessarily have the clarity. We don't get the clarity that we're wanting to find, is because our motivation is really built around fear. But when we can switch our motivation and ground ourselves into the present moment, do work like the precepts provide, this opportunity, a container to release worry, to release anger, to be more in touch with gratitude, to be more in touch with our true self, to be compassionate for ourselves and all the ways that we might be suffering or feeling some waves of anxiety or, the pressures and challenges of life. We go through that cycle. Hopefully on the other side, we find a more balanced sense of self. And I believe spiritual alignment really happens when we're taking radical self-responsibility for our life and choices, and recognizing that we probably made the choices we made in our life because we wanted to. They brought us joy. They brought us connection to our gifts. And if we haven't been living that way, it's an opportunity to kind of lean into that, lean into what does bring you joy and what brings you the sense of like you're living your purpose, right? Like you're living your purpose. Like I'm utilizing these gifts inside of myself that I really enjoy using them, whether that be in our career or again, our relationships. So getting out of the fear, I think, is a really big part of it. And once we're there, I think spirit can meet us where we're at, because spirit doesn't live in this world of self-criticism or judgment. It doesn't judge us for, um, not having won a billion trophies as an athlete, or or not having the perfect relationship, or not having any money in our bank account, or not living according to the way our neighbors live. um, Spirit doesn't look at us like that. We don't, that's not that kind of divine connection between us and the universe. So it's really important to remember that when we are in that state of mind, it also is really going to impact if we are in alignment with our self. And alignment with ourself really begins with that self-responsibility piece, getting out of our way, and then being present with the moment and not judging ourselves for it being any different than what it is.
Yeah, it
Those are
feels
some
really
stuff.
nice to talk about, right? Even
Yeah.
just, I find that with words, sometimes just expressing things sometimes just brings it right up there. And, just the reminder is enough sometimes to just help us let go and sit in the moment. Just words. It's quite amazing, right? But, I was saying just to Carrie before, we are very aligned today because she ran off and grabbed this little piece of sage. And the funny thing was, just before we started, I got some beautiful Japanese incense and I put that on. But there was one more piece to this story, Carrie, right? Oh, because I don't normally do this, right? It's just like, it was just a little, I just felt like it was a lovely thing to do this morning. And we hadn't even decided what we were going to talk about. So, I'm sitting here in this beautiful smell and, just in that, I mean, the movement of smoke and that, that taking away as well, isn't it? It's just so beautiful. But there was one other thing that I've been doing these the meditations for the Reiki technique cards that I'd done. Yep. And so I've been recording them, and I recorded this one, and it was all about, and it was just so cute, and it was just about letting the same sort of thing, smudging and the act, the use of smell and that sort of thing. So I was just thinking that was so weird that I just did that one and you did that and I did that, and it all sort of aligned together, which was just really perfect because we're talking about spiritual alignment. So that all came together nicely. So if I'm on YouTube, I'm actually doing meditations with these cards, and that's that one will be coming up very soon. So yeah, it's interesting how things just fit together. And I think that's sometimes how, we were saying at the beginning, how do you know, right? How do you know if you're spiritually aligned or whatever, right? It sort of sounds odd even asking that question sometimes, doesn't it? So I mean, if you are on the right path, then I think things are in a natural flow. That's the whole idea of what we're doing. So when we work with the system of Reiki, we are clearing, as we've been talking about, and in an effort to allow ourselves to sit back into that natural flow of the world. And when we do, our awareness is up and we are conscious of that movement and flow as well. So we tend to notice things, and that's when we've just noticed these little synchronicities, if you like. Yeah. So sometimes we don't notice these things because we're so busy with our heads in other places and we just can't focus. And when you were talking before, that's what came up for me. I think you actually maybe mentioned the word focus, but that what we're doing is when we maybe, work with incense or whatever we're doing to clear ourselves of fear, we do it so that we can focus. And we know that there are two main types of meditation. And the first type of meditation is focus meditation. And we have that within the system of Reiki with well, most of the meditations actually begin with focus meditation, right? And so ways to teach ourselves to bring our mind in and focus. And when we focus, we let go of the fear. So we release these, the thoughts of what was happening yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow, and we can sit into this space and allow it just to be and be in that natural flow. So we can see how these things line up. So if there are two types of meditation, the first one being focus, the second one is insight. So if we focus, and this is just another way of putting what you just said, Carrie, if we focus, then by focusing, we allow sitting back into everything clear, we can allow then insight to come up. And practices like Joshin Kokyo Ho have both those aspects in it. So we focus with the breath, we focus with the hara. So we've given ourselves tools to focus, and then we just allow that to let go. And we can sit in that space with our minds aligned and allowing insight to come up. And insight doesn't have to be like words or anything like that. It really is just the ability to not hold on to all those things that you were talking about, Carrie. So, all the stuff that's around us, and to be here and to be free of anger, worry, so I guess that's how I see it.
Such a profound word is insight, right? Because isn't that something of probably what we're seeking when we're trying to be in more spiritual alignment, is to feel more insight, or if we are confused or searching, like how do we access that resource inside of ourselves, so it's so powerful. And actually reminds me, because right next to me right here, I have the Okuden Reiki level 2 manual. And I'm looking at the Japanese precepts, the Japanese form of the precepts that come from Buddhism, that have this Buddhism thread through it. And it says, do not bear anger, because anger is an illusion. And how much of our spiritual alignment really does come from us, buying into the illusions in our life. Or do not be worried, because fear is a distraction. Seems to go very much in alignment with what you're speaking to, is that, when we're in a state of worry or fear, we're distracted all these other extraneous facts. And, it's an easy thing to be distracted in our day-to-day life, because there's a lot of things to distract us, but cultivating that sense of focus, and then that the gift that comes from that insight, I think that's so beautiful and profound.
It seems to me that we think that we need, I don't know, that spirituality is this really complex thing. And that's why what I said before, it seems funny to even ask about whether you're spiritually aligned, because it just seems that, to me, there is a very, very profound sense of not holding on to anything. So not holding on to any of those sort of thoughts and us trying to make things happen and all that sort of thing, like not holding on to that, because it's the letting go that actually allows us to sit in life. It's like we're always trying to take ourselves out of it, and make something of it, or, but if we can just sit back into it, which actually seems to be this really simple thing, that to me would be perfect spiritual alignment with life. But obviously we find that difficult, because we're human. I always have that thing about the ants. Like, I look at if someone says, what should I be doing? What is my path? And I'm like, well, are those ants thinking that? Right? I don't think they're thinking that. How do I know? But I don't imagine they're thinking that. And I don't think they're thinking that because they're just doing what they have to do. And they're there. They're there. They know. I think we lose because we aren't focused, because we are distracted by fear. We don't know anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've often actually leaned into that wisdom of like ants and bees and just the complexity of what they create, right? And they have a purpose. There's
Absolutely.
worker ants, there's
Yeah.
queen ants, there's different types of bees that fulfill different roles, right? And it's actually been something that's really helped me understand myself a little bit better. And in times where I've been really confused, especially on my career path, because I've chosen not the most, it's somewhat of a rugged path as a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
Other people are certainly doing it, but it's not mainstream.
Yeah.
And doesn't come with a pension plan, those kinds of things. So there's been times where I've really like been like, am I doing the right thing in my life? Why did I choose this path? 10 years later, I look back and I've accomplished so much. I feel so proud of who I've become and what I do and what I stand for in my life, and how I've helped people. Yeah, there's still a question in me, why did I do this? Like how, and it is something innate, I think, within
Yeah.
me. And I've leaned into that wisdom and surrendered it to it because um, I am a unique person. I think we all are unique, but it's really helped me feel like I know myself better, that I am doing the right thing for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of like the feeling of when you're not in alignment and what that might feel like, and I remember really feeling this after I had my kids, and then we moved to California, and then COVID hit, and it was kind of all during that process where I had my kids, and that really sent me through a huge loop because the cost of childcare was so expensive that really a
Yeah.
lot of the things that I was doing to earn money at that time, like
Mm.
wasn't either enough to cover childcare or cover childcare, but it would pay me like nothing. So I'd had like be paying somebody else to go work and earn
Mm.
nothing. And from that, it was just this most frustrating cycle that I was in. Um, and so I decided to learn a new skill, and I wanted to learn medical billing and coding. And I really had this vision of integrating Reiki and yoga with medical care, traditional medical care. And a big
Mm.
part of that is kind of breaking through the coding process with medical billing and coding. And so there was a good reason for that. And I thought, oh, I could lean into this, earn some money from this, work at home while my kids, I was growing up with my young kids were growing up. But the whole time I was doing it, Bronwen, it just felt like it was like an uphill battle. I was like doing this and it was so hard. And it's not hard because I mean, I actually enjoyed learning more about that kind of stuff, but it just was hard to visualize myself sitting at a computer for hours and doing medical coding. And like there's a big part of me that was like, oh, I don't know. But I wanted to learn that skill.
Yeah.
It took me a lot longer than I thought it was, but in that process, like inner frustration, like I'm like climbing up like a 14,000-foot mountain. Like it just, why is this so hard? And, it turns out like with some perspective, I never followed that career path. I never really activated. I mean, I got my certification, but
Yeah.
it hasn't really opened doors for me. And I think that there was that feeling that I was kind of misaligned there.
Yeah.
And maybe my energy could have been better spent other ways. And I've felt the opposite too, where I've accomplished like really big things, like, like building my website and,
Yeah.
all of these other things that you have to do as a small business owner, and just done that like easily. Like it just kind of it's like this, when I sit down to actually do it, it just flows out of you. And I think that's another sign, that you're on the right track
Yeah,
when you
it's
can.
that, it is that knowing. And I do think that, following your joy. Look, it's not always, life is up and down. That is just the truth of it all, right? But there are those moments, as you said, those moments of joy and those, that sense of fulfillment. And, they are all signs. They're all signs that you're doing something that is right for you, in your situation. And yeah, I guess also, how about the word satisfaction? Like sometimes we aim for these extremes as well. But, there is sometimes just like I said, a sitting back into something that's okay too,
I think cultivating that art of satisfaction is something that is usually missing in our world. And I agree. It's such a good energy to sit back into. And at the end of the day, to also recognize, especially if you are a type A person or you're in a state of overwhelm, big things on your to-do list. If you can sit back every day and just be mindful of what you were able to accomplish in a day. And another thing, as a small business owner, I have these expectations on myself, like I should be here, I should be there, whatever. But it takes time to build Rome. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes time to do all these things that we do in our life, but to also set realistic goals for ourselves, and if we're constantly thinking like, oh, I should be on the moon right now, like, it's going to feel very hard to feel spiritually aligned. It feels hard to be feeling like, oh, I should be in this other place other than where I am right now. Because
it reminds me of those lists. I don't know if you've seen them online of like, what were the 5 most important things that someone thought before they died, or, that they wish they'd done, or whatever. Have you seen any of those sort of things? Yeah. Well, do you know what the top one always is?
What?
People. So it's about people and about, I wish I'd been more loving, caring, kinder, all really beautiful qualities that we tend not to. Sometimes we're scared to express or be, or, but I think they are a natural part of who we are as human beings, because they're the things that help us to be together. And if we don't have those things, then, we can't communicate well or be, the wheels aren't greased in life. And it's a real natural part of sitting into life is being with people and feeling that connection and joy that we can have together. Yeah. So maybe that's also, because you and I, I think we focus, when we're talking, I think we're thinking about, people are thinking about careers and that, but there's also the people element, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it's so good to be connected with what really matters, right? Like, what does really matters, and it's actually something that I often leave with my yoga students at the end of a class, is, inviting them to really connect with what really matters right now for you. But it's hard to get that perspective sometimes. And what you were just talking about reminded me when I was in Japan, and we were on Mount Hiei, and we went down to the temple where they do the goma, or the fire ceremonies. And it's really an intense energy in that temple, because it's really about burning away our fear of death. And if we get really geeky about what is fear, I think if we really boil it down to its constituent parts, it's a fear of death. It's a fear of change and transformation, and which is all a very natural part of life, right? Well, inside of this temple that they do these goma fire ceremonies, there's the medicine Buddha, and there was some side altars, and it's kind of shielded and obstructed. You can't, as a member of the general public, you can't go into the sacred parts of the temple. But on one of the side parts of the temple, I was just looking, and it was just so beautiful. And somebody there put fresh flowers and lit these fresh candles. And as I was viewing this beautiful temple, just an intuition, a thought came to me that, Carrie, in this area, there is no money.
Mm.
And it's like the money that drives us, propels us in our day-to-day living, the work it takes to pay our mortgages and our rent and all of that stuff. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist in that realm. And it's no longer, important.
Yeah.
And when we can strip away that, what does come up is what matters about our relationships and
They're still there.
how yeah, those are the things that really matter. And that was such a beautiful gift to receive that wisdom, from that space. Um and it's just such a perspective changer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree entirely. I mean, when you haven't got money and it feels stressful and all those horrible things, but they're just things. They're not really you, and you're, I mean, it's what you make of it, really, and so being with, like I said, people, being with others, having love, that is the thing that is that we feel, and yeah, it's a difficult thing because we focus so much on money in our world, don't we? And it becomes the most important thing. It's like, I always laugh, like the economy. What the frick is the economy? I know it sounds silly, but I mean, I don't know. I can't hold it. I don't see it. I don't know what it is. And yet someone's telling me about, oh, it's doing this and that's doing that. And I don't know. Yeah. It's all outside there somewhere.
It is, and it's us being part of the ocean, right? Of some bigger force of humanity, and we're inside of it. And money is. It's not to say that it's not important, and
We need it.
but it's and it is what our world runs on, and it as healers and people who follow a spiritual path, I don't think that we should have a negative concept around money, but nevertheless to recognize what it is, and to say that, like, oh, there's moments in time where this doesn't matter,
Yeah.
um, and it's hard. It's a switch of focus too, right? Because if we're focused on that career path, making money, stability, all of those things in life, we do need those things. But um, when we can't switch off that light switch and just have moments of genuine connection with our friends and our family, that's, I think, sad. It's sad, and it's because the inside of us, we're not really aligned to that, right? Like, if there's been times where I'm like not really wanting to relate to my kids, and I know that they want to connect with me because they need attention and
Yeah.
my focus and my one-on-one devoted time and energy and stuff like that. And sometimes I can offer them that, and sometimes I can't, but I have to remind myself that it is important to offer them that, to really take time every day to be there with them and to be present to them and to be with where they're at in their life, and support them right where they're at. And I can't do that, right, if my mind is in all these different places. I can't find that right priority for myself. So all of
Yeah.
those things, I think, alignment really help us with. It helps us divide up. We have a limited amount of resources with our focus, with our time, with our money, with our energy, all of those things. So where can we put the most value of ourselves into our life, and to notice when we're spinning our wheels.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
hard to do that, but notice when we're like, oh, I just keep putting all this energy there, thinking I'm gonna shift something, change something, and it's not how it's working. So, I mean, I do that. I still do that. There's places in my life where I'm doing that right now, and it frustrates me. But I guess I have to be willing to surrender and put put different energy or put my resources into different buckets.
Well, you remember at the beginning of this, I was just saying how important words are. So even just speaking about it sometimes, Carrie, is just bringing that up into our consciousness so we can be more aware of what we're doing and make changes if we need to make changes. And
yeah,
it'll
totally
be good.
And those little synchronicities that brought this conversation through today, I think all of that is a really good, you can always lean into that's a really good sign, right? Like, like we're on the right here, because I was actually just talking to one of my Reiki 2 students that I circled in with over the weekend. And she said she was talking about the journey that she's been through after studying Reiki 1 and 2. And she's made some really big changes in her life. And it's been just so exciting. And she feels so good. And she just feels so connected spiritually. And just that she's on the right path in her life. And it's just like so exciting to see that in anyone, but like especially somebody you've helped them get to that place, or you've given them the tools to access this beautiful gift of Reiki. And and she talked a lot about the synchronicities in her life that were happening, and it just gave her this hope and this inspiration, because if we were talking about topics as intangible as spiritual alignment, it is intangible, and we might have a deep knowing, but it's always going to require some faith and trust. And even in a moment we might really have this realization, oh, this is the right thing, but then we forget the next day or the year later or whatever it is. And so we have to remind ourselves to come back to it.
Well, this podcast today is a reminder to us, you and me and everyone else. So I don't know, just be there, be in the moment, notice things, be aware, and really tap into that natural flow of life. And don't worry, don't worry about whether you are spiritually aligned or not. I think that, those are the things that take us out of it, right? So sit back into it and remember your humanity, remember the people in your life, and feel the love. And we will see you, I think, at the next podcast. So have a beautiful day. And don't forget to like us and share us and do all those wonderful things. Thank you for being there. And thanks, Carrie, for sharing today.
Well, thank you, Bronwen. It was lovely to have this little chat. And I hope you all enjoyed having this chat with us. It's like we're all having a cup of tea and having a good chat.
Bye now.
Bye.